Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Bryan Kramer. We are back for another H2H chat, which means it's Monday, noon Pacific Standard Time, and different times everywhere else in the world. How are you doing today? We're so excited to have you here, and we're excited about the guests that we have today especially. But before I make a more formal introduction, I always like to say hello to my co-host, Suzie. Suzie, how are you doing?
I am doing well, doing well. Super excited for our topic today. It happens to be one of my absolute favorites. And our community will recognize Julie from her participation weekly in H2H chat. So we're excited to have her on this side of the camera. It's going to be great.
Cool, cool. And you have a different background this week than that. You're switching things up.
I am. I
Nice.
have a kind of pear-shaped desk, so I'm going back and forth. What do you think? A little bit more colorful?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
More
liking
interesting?
the I'm liking
Yeah.
the background. It's
There you
definitely
go.
very cool.
There you go. Awesome.
Well, good, good. Well, without further ado, I'll let everybody in on a little bit of an intro, and then we're gonna actually dive in and talk with everyone. So before I do that, today's topic is the key elements for building influencer marketing campaigns. And like Suzie said, it's something that that we are very passionate about, not only as ourselves but also at Pure Matter, having done a lot of social influencer and marketing influencer campaigns. Is something that's very near and dear to our hearts. And so we have with us today two really passionate influencer marketing people, and I want to introduce them. So the first person that we've got is Julie Zisman, and Julie actually is a longtime friend, and like again Suzie said, also a person who joins H2H chats almost all the time. So we're really happy to have you on this side of the camera. Julie is the head of marketing at LittleBird, an influencer marketing platform that identifies the people, company, and organizations that shape market trends and buyer intent on Twitter. So she joined LittleBird in 2014 after serving more than a decade in marketing leadership roles at ShowPod, Contangent, and Tea Leaf. And I go back all the way to Tea Leaf with Julie, so we have some great history there. And then we also have Dustin Luther, who is joining us. Well, he is normally in Malibu, California, but today, don't let the light behind him fool you, because he's actually up in Alaska at a conference. So we are very excited to have you join us here. Dustin is the Director of Engagement for Dun Bradstreet. As the Director of Engagement at Dun Bradstreet, Dustin manages a team that spans content, events, and social media through articles, videos, webinars, hangouts, contests, live events, and other campaigns. His team is focused on engaging with and educating the business community about the value that Dun Bradstreet and Hoovers can bring to their businesses. And Dustin and I also had had dinner. I think it was like a year ago.
It was.
Santa Monica, I want to say, and so I got a chance to really get to know him there as well. So anyway, welcome both of you guys. How are you doing today? Julie, tell us a little bit about yourself. What did I not explain that it was in this paragraph that I just read that about yourself that I should have?
Gosh, that covered a lot. So I've been doing B2B marketing for a long time, over a decade, and influencer marketing is nothing new. It's something that those of us who have been doing marketing for a long time have always done. It's the way that we engage with analysts. It's the way that we engage with reporters. But in the world of social networks, there are many more influencers to take advantage of relationships with. So it's been really great to kind of bring those practices into a more formal structure with all of the great influencer marketing tools on the market today.
Such a great mix when you think about everything that we've all done in our marketing backgrounds, and now all of a sudden this this new concept, not really new concept, but how it's actually being orchestrated through social media is obviously just getting started. And I want to dive into that more with you, Julie, here in just a second. But Dustin, why don't we have you also give us a little bit more about yourself? What do I not see here that we should?
Well, you know, there's so much. There's always different ways you can dive in there. But following what Julie said, I remember reading the Clue Train Manifesto, which was, I don't know when that was written, maybe the late '90s. But a lot of the influencer marketing stuff is what I got out of there. It was kind of like where PR was going and all that. So over the past decade, I've held a lot of those kind of ideas, so we'll talk about how to effectively do influencer marketing today. But it's when you're doing something right, often in marketing, in my mind, you're doing stuff that's building off of things that worked 5, 10, 20 years ago anyway. So I like to think we're doing a lot of that same stuff. So yeah, my background, I was an early business blogger, and just came to kind of love networking online. And having then started really getting into events and going to a lot of events, speaking at events, I found that as much as I enjoyed networking online, my real connections often made when I met up with people. Like we talk about, we might have tweeted a dozen times, Bryan, but we remember that one time we met in person, right? And it makes a big difference. There's a certain level of kind of trust you get once you've met somebody, assuming they're kind of trustworthy, right? But you can really build off of that stuff, and so love going to events. I think it's a kind of a critical part of the influencer marketing that I do, among many other things I think we'll cover. But I don't even know where to go beyond. Just really look forward to diving into the topic.
No problem, no problem. That is a great little kickstart. Let's dive right in. Let's get started. Let's have each of you describe and define what is influencer marketing today. How do you define, how do you look at what influence is, and how somebody is perhaps influential? And so why don't we start with Julie? Julie, you want to start with that?
Sure. So I obviously I have LittleBird as a platform to leverage, so and I really, when I heard about the platform, one of the things that I liked was the way they looked at influence. So it was not merely popularity. It's not Kim Kardashian and Justin Bieber in every search that you do. You're actually looking for subject matter experts. Mm-hmm. So when you are a B2B marketer and you want to talk about artificial intelligence or sustainability or virtual reality, you want to find the experts in the field to connect with, because when you can earn a relationship or engage with an influencer who is an expert, it gives you that volume and that credibility that you need to drive referral traffic to any of your digital properties, and that's the output that you're looking for when you're thinking about influencer marketing in many cases. But it's not the only one. So there's when you think about influencers, there's kind of an ecosystem around them. There's actually identifying those experts themselves, and then there's identifying the people that they have relationships with. And once you kind of enact that entire ecosystem, it gives you really great marketing.
Great answer. Great answer. I agree. And now Justin Bieber is certainly, I gotta admit, some of his music lately, I catch myself listening to it and I'm like, darn it, why do I like that? Anyway, I just had to say that. So Dustin, how about yourself? How do you look at influence? How do you define influence?
So for me, I'm looking at often within a niche. So if I'm doing a lot of work in the real estate space, like I used to do, it was, who in the real estate space has the biggest voice that's kind of active online. When I started with a startup that it was eventually bought by Dun Bradstreet, it was all about identifying people in the small to medium-sized business world, the SMB world. So I went about and just created a big list of who is influential in there, because I really didn't know, who is the one that, the people that I really want to network with. And, you start providing value to those guys. So for the last couple of years, that's been a lot of what I've been doing, is really kind of ingratiating myself into the small business space. Whereas when my team, the larger team that I'm part of at Dun Bradstreet, when we took over marketing for Hoovers, a lot of it became, oh, now we got to figure out who's big in sales and marketing, and what are we going to do there? It's a different crowd than necessarily the kind of credit building business that we've been working with before. So you often change niches. You want to figure out who it is, who do you identify, and then come up with strategies to really network with those people, whether it be going to events, whether it be creating, lists where they get featured, whether it be writing articles and blog posts that kind of highlight the good stuff that they're doing, whatever it is, you start chopping it off and maybe you would have just did one piece at a time. Start really networking with those people that matter. So that would be the way that I would go. Similar to what Julie was saying, really trying to not focus necessarily on the Justin Biebers of the world, right? That's not. I remember when Clout came out years ago, when they first launched. I just was not impressed with it at all. I was like, this is the dumbest influencer thing around in my mind, because it was a really generic influencer number he was trying to give. Like, your influence is, a 98 or a 46, whatever it was. And for me, I remember even talking via Twitter with the guy who founded it. We were bantering. I was going, this doesn't make any sense to me, because, Robert Scoble might have a big influence in the virtual reality world and none in fashion, right? Like, so if I'm a fashion guy, he's a zero, right? But and nothing. I mean, maybe he's got some fashion skills, but I think he would profess that he's bigger in the technology and the virtual reality space himself. And yet there's other people who, so depending on where you're trying to go, really niche it and figure out who it is that can make the biggest impact on your marketing going forward.
And I think we see different models for B2B versus B2C. B2C marketers often want to do different things with influencers. So it's the difference between wanting someone to talk with credibility about how your product footprint is going to impact the global warming over a 10-year period, versus I have a product that I want to market and I want to engage with Instagram influencers to showcase a product. And that's not wrong, but those are two very different approaches to influencer marketing.
So, okay, let's talk about the approach. Every brand is different, every service is different, there's different cultural footprints, all that sort of stuff. But let's just say for purposes of this example that that you were going to counsel, both of you were going to counsel an organization or a group of people to just start down the path of starting to think about how to start their influencer marketing. What are the top steps involved, and where should they start? Is it in actually, I'm going to leave it at that. Dustin, why don't we start with you?
Sure thing. So for me, it's always just starting with something interesting that you can do. I think of most of my marketing being broken into either like timely content you can do or authoritative. So, and in a company, especially in the B2B space, but elsewhere, you need a real strong mix. And so many people get kind of stuck creating this really authoritative, we're the experts, we know this. And quite honestly, a lot of that content is just quite boring. It's needed and it's a background and it needs to be there. But you have to have something that people are going to talk about, that they want to share with their friends, that they want to do. So if I'm thinking influencer, I'm trying to create content that an influencer is going to go, wow, this is kind of cool, I want to share that. And it's not trivial, and most people, I would say, they just go about it from a really simplistic point of view. You're not going to get, unless you're a major consumer brand, you're not going to get money to go spend $20,000 to go get a Kardashian to, input an Instagram, your product in an Instagram photo or whatever it is. Like, it just doesn't, that kind of influencer marketing doesn't really resonate with the work that I do. Right? So for me, it's much more building relationships, talking to people who have something interesting to say in this space, and maybe arming them with more information or a cool insight, or like I said, if you put them on a list and say, here's the kind of people that I find most valuable in the work that I'm doing. People love that stuff. They love to share that kind of content. They're like, holy shoot, I was recognized. That's really cool, right? And for something that I know means something to me. It's one thing to get recognized when it's just kind of blasé, like, oh, this person's just trying to get my attention, and it's something else when you tell someone put some thought into it, and it's a meaningful recognition. So you want to keep it meaningful with influencers. You don't want to be giving them stuff that's a waste of their time, because that's the number one way to get somebody to unfollow you or to just turn you off or to block you. So it's a lot of it is just about providing interesting conversations and value with the people that you think are going to be the influencers that can really make a difference in your marketing.
Fantastic. Julie, how about yourself?
So I think the first thing that you need to do is understand the goals that you want to create by partnering with influencers. And one of the kind of under talked about concepts with influencers is that they are trendsetters. So if you can create a relationship with an influencers, you often get insights into the market well before your competitors. So that research component is something that is kind of an underutilized element in influencer marketing, but it can be really valuable to your business. So understand, are you looking for product feedback? Are you going to partner in advance of a product launch? Do you want to create content with an influencer to get amplification about a specific subject? Really understanding how you want to use influencers in your marketing strategy is the first step. Then understand who are the most relevant people for you to partner with. It's not about kind of a spray and pray strategy to me. It's about identifying the most relevant influencers in your space, the subject matter experts, as Dustin said, who can add value to your market, because it's kind of a two-way relationship. You want to add value to the influencer, and you want to add value to your customers. So when you can find that perfect wheelhouse that gives you both sides of that coin, you're going to get great marketing.
That's awesome.
It is. You know, Bryan, can I build off of one thing she said?
Please.
I
Absolutely.
think that, you know, one of the things that I was really impressed with early on, back when Zillow was launching, is they would do some influencer marketing where they would take like a group of bloggers and take us all to hotels and give us, like, you know, similar to what Julie was saying there, give us product launch information before they launch it. They're saying, this is what we're going to do, and, you know, here's how it's going to work, and, you know, at midnight on this day you can actually blog about it. And the number of people that would, you know, get all ready, get everything teed up just to hit publish was huge. And it was just Zillow giving, you know, the real estate people a little bit of extra early information and making them feel special. That made a huge impact in that online real estate community. They were in a tough space. They were going up, you know, they were seen as the enemy for a lot of real estate professionals. So they had a lot of work to do, and I think they did a phenomenal job doing it at the time.
A lot of customers that we work with want to change brand perception. They want people to understand their brand in a different way, and that's why they work with influencers just in the way Dustin described, is because influencers can shape opinion. So if you are trying to, you know, turn a 100-year-old company around into, you know, something new, it often can be influencers that lead the way for you.
Okay, so we got into the first few steps, and I just want to make sure that we covered that for everybody out there that's looking at beginning their influencer program. Now, I'm curious how each of you looks at the metrics within each of those steps. Like, what are the questions that you ask that derives the right beginning? Because we all start with metrics, as Suzie would tell you. She, you know, starting with the benchmarks and really understanding where we want to head first is probably the most important thing we could do, and then diving into the actual, dare I say, human part. So Dustin, why don't we start with you this time?
Sure.
What is your take on the benchmarks you look for, especially at D&B or Hoover's?
Sure. Well, when I start a campaign, it's often different than when you get into it, right? So we just launched a new subdomain recently, and I know that, you know, view counts on the page on this whole site-wide, they're not going to matter in the long run, but in the short run, you want to make sure that you're getting new traffic there. You know, the stuff you're doing is resonating, and something like UUs or page views still count. Actually, they're the easiest thing to get. Let's say if you're looking there, but if we were talking influencer marketing. You know, I remember who shared it with me, but they shared it with me years ago on Twitter, and it was find just 10 people in any given area that you want to be an expert in, and network like with those 10 like crazy. Find 10 active people on Twitter. So if you decided, ooh, I want to, you know, really get everybody to know who's art history in Los Angeles, find those 10 people, everything they're doing, interact, you know, and you will be part of that community before long. So keeping it kind of small and you know, by something you can really chew on is important. For us, I tend to make the lists around 50 as a company, mainly because I've got a team. We've got social media marketers on my team. So I can say to them, here's the top 50 people in sales and marketing. Right? And right now, 6 of them are following us back. A week from now, let's make sure there's 8 or 10, and let's watch progress. Let's go. So if you challenge somebody with that kind of metric, I like the incentives it puts in place, because what it does is it forces them to go, okay, it's not that I just got to go tweet out at everybody and use all their names, or I got to just, what's that strategy you're going to use to get those people to follow you back? And with influencers, those are the hardest people to get to follow you back, all right? And tends to be, many influencers tend to be pretty selective in who they follow. So that means you got to really earn it. It might be you got to go, like I said, get involved in chats they're involved in, or you got to, write articles and things that are featuring them, or have them come on to a live stream that you're doing, or there's any number of ways you can really start to kind of reach out to those influencers. But the metric that I like the best is just you create a set of people that you think you want to reach out to, and then see if you can get more of them to follow you week after week after week.
Great. Julie, how about yourself?
Totally agree with Dustin. That's the kind of the first step in measurement. So understanding your social capital footprint with a specific group of people can be really important and help you understand where you are. If you think of influencers as kind of shared voice within the market, you can think of earning those new relationships with other people as the ability to extend the reach of your brand footprint. From there, we take it a little bit further. So when those people start to talk to you, you want to look at the digital footprint that those people are bringing back to your site. And that can be through a variety of different tactics. If you're co-creating content, if you're inviting them to participate in tweet chats, if you're meeting with them at events, there's a lot of different ways to measure that, but if you can measure your referral traffic and how those people are driving referral traffic back to your site, we get about 1/3 of our digital traffic at LittleBird from referral traffic, and that's about a $50,000 ad spend annually for us. So it's all about how you want to leverage resources and your time, and it can be really meaningful. Also, the referral traffic that we drive in converts 3 times better than any other of our marketing tactics.
Ah.
So it's really understanding those metrics and where that traffic comes from. There's a variety of different tagging, and you have to do all of the tricks that we as marketers learn to tag and to partner and to provide unique URLs to influencers. But the first step is creating those relationships.
Yeah, that is definitely machines and humans working together, using a tool, and obviously I'm gonna dive into LittleBird a little bit here, because we need to understand how to find people more quickly, and obviously that's what LittleBird does. So can you just describe a little bit about how that happens, and then Dustin, I'd love to hear from you as a follow-up to that, how you might use that. So why don't we start with just the overview of the actual machine behind how to go find people.
Sure. So LittleBird has an algorithm that we use, and the thing we're most known for is our topic network. So it's, again, be able to put any word into LittleBird, and we will go out and find a network of companies and people and organizations that all congregate together around a specific topic. And that can be anything from social selling, or sustainability, to personal medicine. It can be anything. And so we'll group up to 1,000 members together in a network, and then we show you how they're related to each other. So you earn influence by the number of relationships that you have with other experts in the field versus, again, popularity or like how many times you use a keyword. So it's all about the relationship. So it's context. And then we give you some other options too. We allow you to find how people are congregating around mentions. So if you're running a tweet chat like H2H chat and you want to see how people are connected who are participating in that conversation, you can see things like that too. But again, for today's purposes, I think the thing we're most known for is that topic network.
Yeah, the topics are massive, and so I'd like to talk more about that in a little bit, because again, needle in a haystack with millions and billions of conversations going on, and finding that one important conversation that means a lot to you is very, very detrimental to any business. Dustin, speaking of, how do you apply that to your business?
Sure. Well, for us, I thought I would give an example because we do use LittleBird, of how you can kind of leverage that tool. When I did our first SMB list of most influential people here at Dun Bradstreet, when we were actually a startup, but back in 2011. I looked, and I had a team of interns who were working with me, and we spent about 80 hours and used Twitter APIs and did a whole bunch of pivot tables, and kind of came up with a list that the community said, this is who we find influential. There was some great people on the list. Actually, the founder of LittleBird was on the list, Marshall Kirkpatrick, and among a bunch of others. It's a great list. If you just Google most influential people on Twitter, SMB, something like that, you'll find it. And so anyway, we put this list together, and it was so popular, got picked up by the Wall Street Journal and other. The influencers loved it. We had Gary Vee, he was one of them. He's got his big picture in the Wall Street Journal being a big SMB influencer. So it was a great way for us to go kind of promote this local community and get a ton of traffic and links and everything else back to our site. That was really great. So I say that, I kind of give you that as a background, because we did it again the next year, and again it took us like 80 hours worth of work, and then the following year, Twitter closed their API access, where all of a sudden you had to be authenticated, and you couldn't just make the same calls you could before. And we actually couldn't get our development team to put together something so we could run the list. And I was like heartbroken. It turned out to be such a pain. And Marshall Kirkpatrick, in the meantime, had gone out and created LittleBird, which followed much of the same logic, right? And I loved it. And came and I met him at a Content Marketing Institute in Cleveland event. And he told me what he was doing, and I was just like, yes, give it to me. I love it. And we went and published a new list using largely their backend that they already had all the Twitter stuff done. So I tell you this because it's really a cool tool in terms of being able to take a niche, like they were saying. You can say topic or niche, or there's different ways you can call it, but they're pretty much, in my mind, they're all the same thing. But so you can come in and you can say, I want to find everybody who's big in the mobile space, or the virtual reality, or the in our case, the SMB space, or sales and marketing space, and get those lists of people. And really just, like I say, if anything, the 1,000 in my mind is just too much. We often will take a huge list and just try to get it to 50 or something manageable, where you can go, I can follow almost everything these people say and start networking with them. And once you've done well there, then you grow the list. But find a healthy size and just start attacking it.
And we help customers like Dustin do that, because we also provide a highlight reel of the best performing content shared by those 50 influencers. So, and content can be like that door opener to create conversation with influencers. So by having that highlight reel in those networks, you're already, have the tools that you need to try and create those connections on Twitter.
Great. Well, so obviously using a tool and building something that can crunch numbers fast is important, but now then there's that human side that takes over, and that's that's both content and people working together to actually build something that is influential. And so we've worked through the identification of people, understanding where they're at, where they're at and what they're saying. How do you both suggest onboarding them into something that could then turn into something influential, like content, like what kind of content could be created, and so on and so forth? Julie, do you want to start on that one?
Sure. So influencers are human. They are, they're so really have a conversation with them, engage them in conversation, and you can use the content that they share to open that door, but understand what they're working on. Don't just go in with a heavy-duty ask. Understand the projects your influencers are working on, and try and add value to the things that they're doing, whether it's assistance or support in their events or their tweet chats, or it's just saying like, hey, I have a great product that can help you do the things that you need to do for your business faster. So let me give you kind of some exclusive access to some information of our product, or even give you free access to our product. So it's just a way to, open a door and add value to their world, which again opens the door to conversation about how you can work together in the future.
Great. And how about yourself, Dustin?
We just try to come up with something interesting based on what we're doing in marketing. So we've done everything from kind of live stream events to Twitter chats to blog series. We did one with Amex, where we took influencers and featured them. So I guess it's finding a way to kind of create marketing campaigns that integrate the influencers is where I tend to start.
Mm.
I actually see, sorry, I looked at Twitter. I see Ivana Taylor's on the tweet chat, and that's someone who Dustin and I both know. She's a small, medium business influencer, and she's someone that I just connected with, just through conversation and, again, understanding what she was working on, how we could add value, and we've worked together a lot, and it's just been one of those great conversations that turned into a business relationship.
No doubt.
It's great. So many times we talk about how social media in general leads to an offline relationship, which is really what it is all about. From what Bryan fans always talks about it from a online to a handshake or a hug, and I agree with that. That's the soft side and the wonderful side of marketing. But then there's the business side of marketing, which needs to convert. So what kinds of content are you looking at to help in those conversions in influencer marketing? Dustin, you want to start with that?
Sure. I think it's really challenging to get an influencer to, tweet out or post on Facebook or LinkedIn or somewhere like a straight up, sales pitch. Like it's almost like you're going to do yourself more harm than good. My take has been to really leverage, it depends on who I'm working with. For the last, couple of years, I've been working with this Dun Bradstreet brand, which has such great Google equity and SEO value that, we can do things that wouldn't be able to be done otherwise because, the dnb.com website has .gov links, whitehouse.gov links. I mean, you just get incredible inbound links, right? So what we are able to do is just to create essentially content sections that are very authoritative, videos and articles and webinars and things that are much more geared towards educating business owners and other influence and other kind of people in the space, and then go out and use the networks that we have to run interesting campaigns that get people talking. And in those campaigns, if we're talking about business credit, and we're going, well, if you're having trouble with this type of business credit, here's how it explains, or you really want to build your business credit, here's the 7 steps, and we link out maybe in that blog post or in the conversation we're having, or we get influencers to kind of go, that's something that's super relevant and useful, but I wouldn't say that we go out and try to get the influencers ever to convert for us. There's probably people who have examples of that working well in the B2B space. I've not seen much of it. For me, it's much more, network, get conversations started, get people sharing your links and your topics and your webinars and that as much as you can, and within those provide the resources that will convert.
Julie, how about you? What are your thoughts here?
So I agree. I think you have to understand there's a spectrum of influencers in the world, and understanding the relevance to your community can help you prioritize how you might want to work with them. Influencer marketing, you are not always going to get a free engagement with an influencer. But understanding who is contextually relevant to your audience will help you understand where paid engagement might be useful. And if that person is a champion of a topic that's important to your business, as Dustin said, so if you're in sales and marketing and you want to talk about social selling, or you want to talk about true, analytics is related to marketing, understanding who the most relevant expert is in that field, and then understanding how you can partner together on a specific topic that's going to be meaningful and add human elements to your audience so that your customer gets where the beauty of influencer marketing is, and again, where there's true opportunity for brands.
Oh, that's great. So, by the way, Dustin, I'm not sure if I even told you this when we were prepping, but by now you probably realize that when you use the word human,
I'm looking.
That
I'm looking for a way. I'll work it in. Don't worry. I now see it. I see what Julie's doing. I'm competitive enough. I may not beat her on the total human references, but I'll get there.
All right. Okay, so we've hit that point now where it's time for questions, and we've got some great quality conversations going on here, and we have some great influencers and people that have joined us here today. So I just want to recognize everybody that is here, that's driving some great dialogue alongside this on hashtag H2H Chat. If you want to continue posing your questions on H2H Chat, please do. But at this point, I'm going to pass the baton over to Suzie, and she's gonna ask those questions of you both. So here you go. Cheers.
All right, hey guys, this has been an awesome conversation. We're seeing great engagement in the Twitter stream. So we're gonna go ahead and do a little bit of a lightning round with these questions. We have some really interesting people. I'm gonna throw them out, and then we'll go back and forth, whoever wants to answer it first, and get started in that way. So first, we have a great question from Stacy. Stacy, so glad that you could join us today. So she says, are influencer marketing programs more effective than advocate programs in building tribes around small business brands? What are your thoughts, Dustin?
I'm not sure what an advocate program is versus an influencer program. Sorry if I don't know. Julie, do you know?
So when I think of an advocate, I think of someone who's already your customer and leveraging, just like you're an advocate today for LittleBird, Dustin.
Yep. Gotcha.
I'll let you take it from there.
No, that totally makes sense. I was trying to go, what do they mean by advocates? Because they're the concepts are so closely aligned. Love advocate programs. We will go out of our way to travel the country and take videos and do some great stuff with those people who have found value in Dun Bradstreet or Hoover's products, and make sure we get to highlight them. It's often a very different beast, but yeah. Well, I guess so getting back to the question, I'm sorry if I forgot. I was trying to go. Is it different or more value, or you want to mix there for sure?
So when you have obviously, when you have a small business, you have limited resources, right? So a lot of our members of our community have small businesses or are starting out, things like that. Obviously, having worked in the startup, market, if you're looking to make a spend, what would be your advice in terms of advocate versus influencer marketing?
I don't know that the nice part about the advocate stuff is a lot of it is free. I mean, if you're paying your advocates, there's real specific rules around how you can't even use them for testimonials and stuff, right? Or you got to note that they're paid and that kind of thing. So, with the advocate stuff, ideally, you're not paying a lot. That's the good part. And ditto for influencer marketing. So it's much more of just where you see opportunities. For me, I've found it a lot easier to kind of dive into influencer marketing in general. And figure out who they are and network, and they tend to be more active. Like, your best customers probably aren't the people that are active on Twitter, with few exceptions. If you find some, love it and live it and highlight it and promote it. But for the most part, I look for people who are already active and have a following, because that's where you're going to get the best kind of shared. Your content's going to be shared the easiest.
I look at it a little bit differently. I think advocates are there to talk about your brand. They're there to kind of be a validation point for your brand. Influencers are an opportunity for you to own a larger conversation. So again, understanding what is the broader issues of sustainability, or autonomous vehicles, or artificial intelligence, whatever ties back to your business, it's the conversation. That is where I think you make the investment with an influencer.
Absolutely. I think what it sounds like, and what I'm hearing from definitely from you, Julie, is that we're talking about different strategies going into what your goal is to execute, right, at the end. And so when you're thinking through that, that's what you're trying to figure out.
Agreed.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So one really great great question here that I also have, from Cindy, and I think this relates right into what Dustin was saying too in terms of influencers, right? A lot of influencers aren't free, right? There's a lot of paid programs out there. We have a lot of pay-to-play people, very well-known people with lots and lots of influence. So Cindy Millett raises a great question here, and she says, do people really trust the influencer that represents you if they're getting paid? Julie, what are your thoughts based on all the case studies you've seen here?
I do. Again, it's a little bit different, I think, from B2B to B2C. So B2C, it works a bit more like paid media. And then there are very specific rules about having to disclose that you're a paid influencer. Actually, regardless of what industry that you're in, you have to kind of denote that you're being a paid influencer. But it's when you partner with an influencer who is an expert versus someone who's just doing a paid product placement, and you're having a conversation about content that is related to your business but isn't a specific product pitch, and you're partnering with that influencer to add value back to the community and back to the market, I do think people trust you, because it isn't about your product play. It's like what Dustin did. I don't know if you talked about this explicitly, but the Saturday small business campaign with American Express. Maybe you can talk about that, Dustin. I think that's a great example. And maybe there wasn't any paid engagement, but it's about having value and trust back to the industry.
Sure, yeah, no, with that particular case, after we ran we created the first list of the 50 influencers, I went out to all of them and said, with Dun Bradstreet Credibility Corp, where we were at, we had a deal with Amex, and we were going to help them promote their Small Biz Saturday. And could I do an interview with them related to, how business owners could kind of improve their holiday sales around retail? So we ended up getting a bunch of those 50 influencers to answer some interview questions, and we just posted almost one a day throughout November leading up to Small Business Saturday. And it was a great campaign for us, because every day we had somebody new, Amari Smith or somebody like that, who would, once we featured their interview on our site, they were out promoting it on themselves, on their Facebook, on their Twitter round, and it just kind of grew into a campaign where day after day we just kept getting more and more traffic to each of these interviews. There was no paid in there for us, but that's just, I can't say I've done a lot of paid influencer or paid advocacy at all. I don't think I've done any, to be quite honest with you. So it's not something that I tend to go to. All the stuff that we do tends to be, pretty organic and built up the relationships.
I just think it's all about, whether you pay someone or not, it's all about your strategy. And again, if you're paying someone to do a sales pitch for you, maybe that's not going to be taken. It's not very human, and it's probably not going to be taken with a lot of credibility. If you talk about larger issues with influencers that have a tie into your brand, it absolutely can lend itself to driving traffic back to your website.
Yeah, I would say there's probably a place for it. I just haven't, that's never been a strategy that I've ever even gone to try to get budget for or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the really interesting things that I'll say as someone who work on influencer programs with various large brands, there's definitely, at this point, influencer marketing has become a bit of a profession for some people, right? Especially after the past couple of years, and they see it as a place where they can really make a killing. And so they are pay to play. There are some people who I know in my campaigns, if I'm doing unpaid, I can't touch, because they're only going to work with you if they're paid, sometimes even through a PR agency. So that's just, that's where the landscape is, right? So I think that's where it becomes really relevant in terms of all of that. So let's jump into a really great question here from my buddy J.S. Gilbert, who is very in-depth in his work on influencer marketing. He wants to know, at what point is someone an influencer? And I seriously love this question, because we can talk about niche influencers, right? So we can talk about very, microcosms of influence. But when we're talking from a brand perspective, at what point do you consider that person influential? And I'd like to start with you, Julie, because it's almost kind of an analytics way. There's something there, right? You have to look and say, okay, are you an influencer because you influence 2 people? How do you, maybe, right? What are your thoughts?
Again, it goes back to what's your goal and marketing strategy and what's important for your business. So if you have like a scientific metrics product and you want to find the people that are connecting on social networks about that subject, you might have a really small pool of people. When you're talking about, again, retail or customer experience, there's a giant pool of people, but what happens is everybody works with the top. And so a lot of times we have brands who work with people that we call emerging or under the radar. And those are people who, when you look at a LittleBird report, they often fall into a middle. They're not in the top 200. They're kind of in that middle ground where they have earned influence through relationship building and they have the trust of a network, but they aren't, often doing what Suzie talked about, which is I'm, on the road all day talking about a specific subject. So that's a huge opportunity for brands to take advantage of, because those people are often a mix of a practitioner and an influencer who are doing a specific job, and that is a huge opportunity to get on board with that person early before they become that kind of full-time influencer.
Oh, I want to jump in here because my first thought went to almost a very different place, which is, like everyone feels like an influencer, right? So you said, like, who is, like, and there maybe it's just because I also, one of my team's role is running the customer support side of social media, right? Where somebody complains about something, and I've seen somebody come onto Twitter, say something like, oh, the sales guy promised me XYZ, and you're, then I find out that they couldn't really do it. And we had one of those cases really early on in our company. And I remember my CMO, who was so swamped, she went and jumped right onto the call. Or she got that person on the phone and said, find their number. I want to find out what went wrong. Where did our sales thing go wrong? She spent 45 minutes talking to one customer who had one bad experience but tweeted about it because there was clearly something broken in the system, right? And she wanted to, like, cut that out before that person before it spread, knew what it was. And for us, that's a very influential person, right? Like, and so that's where my mind went. I know that's not what we normally think of influencer marketing, but, it's almost like sometimes nipping the negative stuff in the bud is become really important for us as a company. So listening, figuring out who's talking about your products, the services they get, what's going on, and really understanding the issues has become a big part of what we do as a team. So everybody's an influencer. Somebody who has a really bad experience, you definitely don't want that to snowball. They can have a massive influence even if they're just brand new to Dun Bradstreet or Hoover's and stuff. So for us, we do our best just to really listen, pay attention, follow up, make sure that we're things don't just kind of get swept under the rug.
Again, in the LittleBird world, influence is all about how many relationships, if you are deemed a subject matter expert, and how many relationships you've built with other subject matter experts. So it's a little bit different, and it really depends on how large a pool you want to play in, whether there's a geo-specific radius that you want to work in, or if you want to narrow it down to a community of people who all congregate together around, a specific hashtag. Those are all options in LittleBird. So really, finding an influencer is dependent on how you view that expertise.
How would you go about, Julia, as a follow-up to this, how would you go about defining that expertise?
So it's, again, whatever the topic is, and we look at that, we do look at the algorithm that we use and a topic and then the number of connections that you have with other people in the community, and then that highlight reel content to see here's what you talk about. Both we do a little bit of language analysis from a hashtag standpoint, as well as, again, those shares and the blogs that you're connected to. So we really give you the opportunity to understand if someone, it's almost like you need to do influencer validation these days, because there's both nowadays it's you're looking as a marketer externally for influencers, but also, especially on the B2C side, a lot of brands are getting inundated by people saying, I'm an influencer. Well, yeah. Are you really an influencer? Yes or no? And having the ability to validate whether someone actually has influence on a specific topic can be really important to your business, either from a customer service standpoint, as Dustin just called out, or again, just someone talking to you and saying, hey, give me a free hotel room because I'm a travel influencer.
Yep, absolutely. I tell people when I do my identification campaigns, the biggest way to end up on my blacklist is to tell me you're an influencer. I need someone else to tell me you're an influencer. That's my definition. If you tell me you're an influencer, you're full of it. That's honestly 9 times out of 10. And if that 10th time, usually you're someone who's pay to play. So I have a good question. Yeah.
I was going to say one thing I'll throw in there is I've gone back to the same kind of algorithms, and it's what I love about LittleBird is you find out who in that community the influencers are following. It sounds almost like recursive, right? But see who in that community, get it. If you can do, as I said, I used to do this manually. It took hours and hours, right? But just identify some of the big players in the community, see who they're following, and those are the people influential to that niche. That would be the, in the most simplistic way, the way that I tend to go about it.
I love that. I love that. I think one thing I definitely enjoy as well from the LittleBird platform, Julie, I could go on all day. But one thing I do love is that you can also see the influential blogs and other sites. And I think that, that as well, there's so much to really, really identify that specific community. So let's move. Let's move over to let's see, a really good question here from Jeff Nowak. Jeff, great to see you in our thread. And by the way, I want to take a moment to say I think at this point it is for the 4th month in it's just about 4 months continuously we are trending nationwide at, according to the powers that be, number 36. So way to go, guys. This is all based on our community. You guys rock. Keep that good conversation going. And I will put my cat off of my, there we go. Cats make the internet. Occasionally they also break the tweet chat. So all right, Jeff has a great question here. He says, what resources do you rely on to learn about new content tools and trends? So this is for you guys. This is your go-to. What are your go-to blogs? Maybe give me 2 or 3 of them for our audience. Dustin, do you want to start off? What are your go-to sources?
Sure. I don't have 1 or 2 websites. I use Flipboard a lot still. I'm on Flipboard all the time. If I'm looking for just kind of industry content, seeing where the conversations are, I'm still use Twitter lists for better or worse, and I even put those into Flipboard. So I've got my lists and of people that I know that are going to be, and I've niched them off and say these are the kind of people I want to make sure I'm seeing what they're doing. So it's the actual influencers in the niche I'm looking at, Flipboard, and then I use another tool called Mention a lot. I have that open every day, all day. It's essentially like a Google Alerts on steroids. That's a really cool tool. I believe it's out of France. It's a French company put it together a couple of years ago, and it's just lets me go in and do topical searches. I get news items, companies I'm working with, execs, myself, all those kinds of things. So you can really just see where the conversations are going. Those would be the 3 things I would say are where I get most of my news. It's a pretty diverse source of kind of a diverse source. There isn't one place I go.
What I'm hearing here is if I was able to tap into your network and find out who else on Flipboard you're reading or on Mention, all these different things, I would easily be able to figure out how to influence you.
Oh,
Am I
for
correct?
sure.
Because you're
I'm
very tapped
easy.
in.
I'm
I love
easy.
it.
Just tweet at me. Like I genuinely did a lot of speaking for years, and like 2006 on, I was speaking about how to do social media, and I gave everyone my Twitter handle for years and say, hey, you have any questions, do this. I would be shocked. I could tell an audience of 300 people, tweet me right now, and 2 months later, one or two people, maybe they've stayed influential, but they all want to, but people just don't connect or do this. I mean, it's always, I'm easy to network with. I love it when people reach out and say, I think you'll find this interesting. That's probably the one thing, that little insight there is the people that do well in influencer marketing tend to do it almost naturally, right? They see something and they go, oh, that relates to that conversation we had, right? I'll go, Julie, I've done this before. I'm like, oh, weren't we having that conversation? Look at the news that just came out, right? That kind of, that person who wants and naturally goes out and wants to share cool things with other people, you almost have to get over to the geek factor. I know a lot of people feel like, oh, what if they're not going to like it? You have to just kind of get past that and say, this is something they're going to find interesting. And if that's your personality, you're going to have a much easier time with influencer marketing.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. One thing I always do is I go through, I get my list, and then I hand filter out everyone's Twitter profile, looking at how they talk to people, what their tone is. Do they seem interesting? What are they sharing? Do they seem excited? Right? Passionate about what they're doing. Otherwise, it's you have nothing to activate if they're completely burned out and only do a 9-to-5 job.
Oh,
totally.
For sure. Or if they don't ever reply, like that's the one thing. Sometimes somebody will show up as influencers, and the first thing I do on Twitter is I go see their little replies button, and if all I see is they've posted a bunch of links, they're useless to me. They're not going to really join a conversation. So I'm going to have a really hard time networking with that person.
Yeah. And I think this conversation is so helpful for our audience because there's so much. In some ways, what we're getting at is what makes an influencer, what you're looking for when you're doing social media influence, right? That you need that type of online presence, and there's a bit of you're not quite sure how to express it, but it's that X factor. I have it's human.
It's human.
Right,
I should have said it.
Multiple sound effects there, I think, for all of us. Wow. I think you win. So last question I want to throw out because I got a question both from Carrie and Jennifer similar to this, wanting to know what are your ideas in terms of influencer ROI. Carrie drills down and says, we've hired influencers who have blogged, tweeted, etc. What are some good metrics to agree on up front? And I know that this gets into the paid aspect, right? So maybe, Julie, let's go to you with that one.
Sure. Well, you definitely want to, again, define the goals up front. So are they driving digital traffic to your site? If they do, like, what's their reach? How many followers do they have? What's their kind of, they should know on average how many times either a blog post, how many page views they get. So understand, if you can ask up front and you're doing a paid engagement, what are their reach metrics, and understand who their audience is too. So either do that in a tool like LittleBird, or make sure that they understand who their followers are, so that it is a good, relevant match for you. And then understand, are they going to contribute to the amplification of any content that you've created through their social channels? How many posts, what you can expect from a post, and oftentimes social engagement should be viewed separately. There's a little bit of a thing that goes on where you can have conversation engagement on social, but it doesn't necessarily translate into digital traffic, even though you're sharing a link. So really understand those two dynamics and what you expect to get out of them.
Suzie, if I could throw one thing, I think I've said like I haven't used paid stuff, but when I go back and I'm hearing her talk about it, we've done it. I just don't think of it as like an influencer program, right? So we paid authors to write content articles, but it's because they're an expert in the field, and we want their insight, and you want to be fair, you want to pay them.
Right.
We have paid, speakers when we're hosting our own events. We do these access to capital events around the country. If you want somebody big to be the host, the moderator of the day or something, we'll pay them, right? And when they're out there, part of what's kind of, obviously part of the program is what reach do they have? Are they tweeting it out? Are they going to write articles on their own site about this? And, yeah, so I guess we have done that kind of thing. And, kind of what Julie's saying is what is the reach that they're going to have is becomes critical, because a lot of times people, and it's not just like follower counts, like you have to just get away from that. The number of kind of crappy bloggers out there with, tens of thousands of followers is insane, right? Because you can go out and buy 10,000 followers pretty easily. So you've got to look beyond that and what really is their reach into a network, because somebody with 50,000 Twitter followers is likely going to drive almost no traffic, or potentially if it's not kind of genuine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll repeat the metric. About a third of our digital traffic comes from influencers talking about our product or just talking about our brand, and that traffic converts 3 times better than any of our other marketing activities. So
and I think, that is.
I'm not saying don't do other marketing activities, but understand where to make your investments.
Absolutely. I love that, and we're going to close on, as much as I would love to keep you guys on for another hour, we are at the top of the hour, and I'm going to close on that point, but I seriously got through like just 25% of the questions on the stream, so I definitely encourage you guys, check out H2H chat hashtag. Lots of real people very interested. This is such an important topic. And loved it. Really enjoyed engaging with you guys. BK, over to you.
Thanks, Susie, and thank you both again, as well from myself and Susie and everybody for joining us out there. Congratulations yet again. We trended nationally. I think number 36. So we're doing well. You guys are doing well and killing it, not only with questions and comments and dialogue, but an important topic like Susie was saying. And Dustin and Julie, thank you guys so much for being here and representing the influencer marketing side. We have a special surprise for everyone on Wednesday. Julie and I are going to do a walkthrough on how to actually go into LittleBird and find the influencers, like Dustin was saying, and reducing your hours of work down to the pockets or just the right people, finding the needle in the haystack. We're going to go live and do that on Wednesday, and so I'd encourage you to join us. I've tweeted out the link once. I just tweeted it out again so you guys can sign up. This will be a special event that we're doing on Wednesday, just the two of us. So please join us there, and I'd love to see you there. Everyone else, have a great week. One other thing I wanted to mention. We are going to be going on hiatus. We have a little summer break. So July, the first half of July, late June and first half of July are going to be some downtime for us. So what I would love from everyone is to tweet at us and let us know what you'd like to see after we get back, because we want to ramp this thing back up and really take it to the max. We are already doing that with you guys, but we want to take it even to a higher level. So let us know who else you'd like to see, what other topics you'd like to see, anything in the next few weeks, maybe from your campsites or hotels or cabins or wherever you're at, traveling the world. Let us know what you'd like to see, and we're gonna work hard to bring that to you. So congrats again. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we will see you soon.